Good evening, guys. I'm Chris, and welcome back to another episode of Rift Amps. Right, Q&A time. Sorry this video is out on a Tuesday, by the way. It's because tomorrow I've got a lot going on and I won't have time to get it all put together. So Wednesday's video usually only ever includes Tuesday's stuff anyway. So Mondays and Tuesdays stuff, I should say. So you're not missing out on anything. It just means you'll have a longer wait until Sunday's video. Anyway, I'm just working on this board, populating it, getting it done. So I thought I'd do the Q&A whilst I'm thinking about it. Had loads of comments over the past couple of weeks. Things that we need to get answered. So let's start with a comment from Mike McMorris 4099, who says, what was the audio analyzer app that I was using on the iPad? Well, it's called FFT Plot. I think it's really, really good. It seems to be really accurate, really bang on, and consistent. So, I mean, I use it all the time, especially when, an amp comes in, a customer says it's got a hum. Well, it seems to be, it nails it every time. It just, I can find out exactly what the frequency is. I can measure noise floors, bits and pieces like that. It just works. It's a great tool to have. And because it's on the iPad, it's portable. So it just works. So yeah, that's the one I recommend. There are others out there. I haven't tried them. It's just the one I've always used. I've actually got the same app on my phone as well. So that makes it even more portable and easy to use. But yeah, they're great. Steve says, love the videos, Chris. How about a chat on reverb transformers? Yeah, sure. What do you want to know? I assume you want to know, is there a tonal difference between different brands on them? To be honest with you, if there is, you'll be hard pressed to hear it. Mainly because the biggest differentiators in a reverb circuit are the tone network within the reverb circuit and the reverb tank or reverb pan. Much more over the transformer itself. Now, we did once experiment with reverb transformers, and I had a couple of different samples made by my winder, and we discovered that when you're winding the transformer, if you go for 3 layers of insulation between each winding rather than 2, you get a lot more clarity in the resulting sound. Now, we couldn't explain that, or at least we couldn't work out why that was. It's just that all of those units that had that extra layer of insulation just sounded more open and a lot more revealing. So we never did get to the bottom of that. Might be a capacitance thing. I'll have to have a conversation with some people about it. But to be honest with you, there are reverb transformers were nailed on the head years and years ago. They all sound great. They all work. Don't worry about it. Louis Electric update. Okay, right. So what have I done? So I've done 3 things to this amplifier so far. First thing I did, which you've seen already, was to replace V3. And we saw that there was a deduction in the noise floor in the amplifier. So that was our first stage. Second thing I've done is I've added some shielding to the roof of the cabinet. So now we've got a proper Faraday cage to reject any noise and things that's going to get into the chassis and is only going to make the amplifier noisier. Third thing I've done is I've messed around with the bias. So let me show you what I've got. This is the bias now as it was. Okay, so actually all I did was I've added 1 ohm resistors to the cathode to make measuring the bias easier. So I've got on each output valve I've put a single 1 ohm resistor. Just makes it easier to measure the bias of the output valves. So this is where we were before. So we've got V6 and V5 obviously when viewed from the rear. V6 was 30 milliamps, V5 is 26.7. So they're not perfectly matched, but they're within 5 milliamps. So I don't need to worry about that too much. Voltage, anode to cathode, 474, 475. Gives us a total wattage of the anode and the screen grid combined. Remember, we're measuring the cathode current there. 14.22 watts on this one and 12.7 watts on this one, which means this one was biased at 101%, and this one was biased at 90%. So our rule of thumb is we're aiming for anywhere in the 50 to 70% range on a fixed bias amplifier like this. So we are biased way over that, really, really hot. So what I then did was I tweaked the bias using the oscilloscope to achieve 18 watts clean, which is what this amplifier is meant to be rated at. What the manufacturer said it is. Whether that's actually achievable or not is, is a different thing. But they say with 6 V6s in it, you should be able to get 18 watts clean output out of that. In order to achieve that, so 18 watts just at the point of clipping with no crossover distortion, our cathode current dropped slightly. Here's the before. So 28.7, 25.8. Our anode to cathode voltages stayed roughly the same. Our total wattage dropped slightly, and now we're at 97% and 87%. So we are, by cooling the bias off to achieve the output that this amplifier is meant to be able to achieve, that's where our bias has ended up. Still too hot. So now let's tweak the bias. Let's adjust it again until the point where we just get a clean output at clipping, and that measured at 14 watts output. Okay. And we're now down to 21.1 milliamps on V6 and 18.3 on the other. Our anode to cathode voltage has risen, of course, because, as current drops, voltage increases. And now we're running in the 63% on this side. Sorry, 73% on this side, 63% on the other. So there's still that 10% split, as you saw there. But now we've got a nice clean output from the amplifier. It's producing 14 watts, which, to be honest with you, the way this amplifier is configured internally, I think that's correct. Anyway, so those are the bias figures and how it's currently biased. So let me show you the output measurements the noise floor measurements using our app here. So this is where we were before. 50 hertz hum was around negative 73 dB, 100 hertz negative 68 dB, and our 200 hertz almost at negative 60 dB there. So that's where we were before. And then if you remember, we swapped that valve out and things dropped. We got a nice reduction there. And remember, where we want to be is below negative 72. Ideally, that's where we want this amplifier to be. But look, 50 hertz at negative 78, 100 hertz at 72, and our 200 hertz is up at 60, call that 62, 63 dB. Right, and this is how it is now. Now our 50 hertz is at 78, 100 hertz, almost the same. So a huge reduction there, and our 200 hertz is now, call it 68. So if we go back to the previous one, we've dropped around 5 dB on that 200 hertz hum. So that's a significant improvement in the noise floor of this amplifier. So what do? You can still hear a hum, and the hum that we're hearing now is that 200 dB 200 dB hum, sorry, yes. So I've made a drastic improvement to the amplifier, but it's still quite an intrusive hum. I'm standing here now probably a meter away from the amplifier, and I can hear that 200 hertz hum. I can't hear the 50 and I can't hear the 100, but the 200 is quite prominent. So where do we go from here? Now, that 200 hertz hum is almost guaranteed to be down to the grounding scheme inside the amplifier. And we know, having looked at it already, that it's not optimal. It's not terrible, but it's not optimal. So I have already spent my 2 hours bench fee on this amplifier, and I've made a big improvement to it. So if the customer wants me to go further with it, then there's going to be extra charges, and that's up to him. I can't make that decision by myself. If it was me and it was my own amplifier, I would just send it and play it. But if he wants me to go further with it and is prepared to pay my labour fee to continually improve this amplifier beyond the 2 hours that he's already paid for, and in fact I've probably spent 2.5, 3 hours on it, so we'll see. That's up to him, but that's a drastic improvement to the amplifier with no perceivable change in the tone and the playing response of it. So all we've managed to do is lower that noise floor, get rid of some of that hiss. There is still that 200 hertz hum, but it is reduced. But to fix that is going to require more time. So that's going to be up to him, but that's good progress on that. The issue we've got, and let's be honest, is from this point on, he's going to be paying time taken. So if it takes me 1 hour to fix that, to improve that hum even more, then he'll pay an hour. But if it takes me 4 hours, then he's paying 4 hours. So there becomes a point where it's not worth spending that extra money. Because to be honest with you, if I stand 2.5 meters away, I can barely tell it's on. It's quite quiet. So that's up to him. But there you go. So unless he gives me the go-ahead to carry on with this, we're going to call this one complete. But very interesting. But yeah, so the main issues were noisy V3, unshielded cabinet, and biased far too hot. And there we go then. Just finished putting together final assembly on this Dexter build. Now, long backstory in this for those that don't know. For an April Fool's joke, a couple of years ago, we built an amplifier that I called the Dexter because it's ambidextrous, because it actually had left-handed dials on it. And it was a fun little joke, and it went down really well. And what I then did was I put the chassis to one side, and we forgot about it for a few years. I was having a workshop clear out. I put it up for sale, and a YouTuber called John Nathan Cordy bought it, had a cabinet head shell made for it, and has started using it in his videos. And we started to get a lot of requests to build more, both in left-handed and right-handed formats, right? So we did those as a limited run, but what's happened is I've decided that I enjoy building these so much and I enjoy the sound of them so much that we're going to make it a permanent fixture in our lineup. Now, obviously, I've now developed it further, and in honour of JNC's original, we've gone for the fawn Tolex on the cabinet, but we've done it with our logo like so. Simple controls. You've got the gain control, master volume, just treble and bass, and we've got our on-off dual light there. It's very simple, and on the rear you've got just the speaker outs of 4, an 8 and a 16 ohm socket. But that's it. But just look how great that looks. That's going to look fantastic. I'm not doing these with any speaker cabinets or anything like that. I'm just going to keep it as it is. But yeah, it's going to be a permanent part of a lineup. So we'll call this Dexter Mark II or version 2. And what is it? Well, I've never shied away from the fact that it's simply it's a matchless lightning circuit, but rather than EL84s, it runs 6V6s, which make a remarkable difference to the sound of this amplifier. And if you watch any of JNC's videos on YouTube, you'll see just how good this thing sounds with 6V6s. So I've taken that circuit now and I've improved it and refined it and optimized it. So it's quite a cool thing. Really, really pleased with this. This particular one is off to Singapore, so the other side of the world. So I need to get this boxed up and sorted, but we'll call this one done. Really, really happy with it. Looks great. Couldn't be happier. But yeah, that's another one done. And Piers, who's bought the amplifier, I hope you love it. Brad's Guitar Garage says, looks like Louis Electric have picked up their game quite a bit. Maybe, I don't know. It's the first one I've had in. I've had a look online and looked at some examples, and they all seem to be pretty similar. So I couldn't rightly comment, to be honest. It wouldn't be fair of me to say either way. The only thing I can comment on is what is in front of me. And that particular unit, my main concern with it was that, in my opinion, it didn't respect the regulatory requirements of the UK market in which it was sold. Probably perfectly fine for North America, but for sale in the UK, it didn't satisfy all the requirements. So I don't know why that is. It may be that amplifier was, imported into the UK from elsewhere rather than being sold here. I don't know. I'm just speculating at this point, which, to be honest with you shouldn't really speculate. So, but yeah, that's my only real concern with it. It's not a badly built amplifier. There are some things that we do differently now. There's some things with it that you could do better. there's also some things in there you could do much worse with. So I wouldn't write Louis Electric off, the brand or the thing. It's the only one I've seen. So my opinion on it, I can't give an opinion on Louis Electric as a brand. I can only give an opinion on that particular amplifier. So sorry if you feel that's a cop-out, but it's the only fair way to be. Just a quick update on this particular PR18. The board is now in, which means I've done my underboards, my overboards and my flying leads. It's now lowered in and secured in place, and I've wired up the controls along the front. So good news there. Just got to do the preamp sockets, my output signal wires, power supply, output socket, heaters, output jacks. Basically, yeah, not far off on this one. So yeah, it's looking good. The only thing is I haven't quite got the height of this overboard right. So I might replace that, or I might tweak it, we'll see. But I'm not going to worry about it for the time being, because it's going to get knocked whilst I do all of that. But yeah, that's me being critical of my own work. But yeah, that's coming along really nicely. I've got a really cool PR18 to build after this, a really cool one. So yeah, when we get onto that, I'll tell you what it is. Richard Lawrence says, can you do a lazy J20 service when one comes in? Great videos. Yeah, sure. You know, I will show every amplifier that I can on this channel. Whether or not I choose to... The thing is, this, as I said previously, this channel, you know, it's not a tech channel. It's just a workshop update, workshop diary type thing. So if I see... and I'm not talking about Lazy J's in particular here, or any other brand. I'm just saying that if I see something that's really good, I will tell you about it. And if I see something that's not so good, I will tell you about it. Just as though if you were a customer that walked in my door, and if I see something that's dangerous, I'm going to tell you about it. And if I see something that's really good, I'll be honest and say, that's great, that's really well done. So if you're wanting me to say nice things or nasty things about particular brands, that's not the way this channel works, it's not the way it does. But I do have a J20 booked in for a replacement power transformer in about a month's time. So yeah, I've got to do that job. Of course, I'll show that on the channel like I do with every other brand. But if you want me to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, that's not really what we do here. And finally, Jake's daddy said the section in the train wrecking video where I was measuring out the chassis, he said was absolutely brilliant and he loved it. So, well, thank you. Thank you very much. It's one of those parts of amp building that's not often taught, in that taking a schematic, and what I mean by that is taking a schematic and turning it into a layout is one thing that's often not taught, and taking a layout and converting that to actually work in real life can be difficult as well. And there's certain rules and principles that you have to follow to make things work, and things you should do and things you don't do. And you know, if you do it this way, it might be noisier than this way, but actually this way might be slightly more toneful. You know, there's lots of considerations. So yeah, people tend not to show how to do layouts, convert a schematic into a drawn layout and then into a physical one, because a lot of it is, there's so many considerations that it's difficult to explain it all in one sitting. Does that make sense? So, but yeah, I mean, I'll try and do as much as I can. The more people that are out there building amplifiers, the better, I think. So if we can do that and we can encourage that and we can say to people, do you know what, here's a cool circuit, why don't you have a go at building it? Now the thing is, I can only ever teach you how to do something in my own build style. Yeah. You know, I build using a certain method in the way that I know and understand and can manipulate to get things to work the way I want. You look at the way those corn foods were built, completely different build style, same with high watts, etc, etc. So it's, you know, every builder has their own way of doing things. So it's but I can only ever show you my way. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you very much for watching once again. Please give this video a thumbs up, all your comments down below, subscribe, notification bell, and if you're feeling really generous, why not join the channel like these guys have? That leaves me to say I shall catch you all at the next one.